After 38 years of marriage, my wife abandoned me in a casino parking lot in Niagara Falls, with no wallet, no phone, and no way home. I was standing there in the freezing October rain, watching her drive away in our car, when an elderly man with a cane and a patch over one eye approached me and said, "Young man, I heard everything. Pretend to be my son. My driver will be here in 3 minutes, and that woman is about to realize she just left her husband standing next to the wealthiest property developer in Ontario." I know it sounds like something out of a film. I know you're probably thinking this can't be real. But I swear on my mother's grave, every word I'm about to tell you is the absolute truth. And if you'll give me your time, I'll explain how that moment in a parking lot changed everything I thought I knew about loyalty, family, and what it means to truly be valued. My name is Thomas Morrison. Everyone calls me Tom. I'm 62 years old, and until that cursed weekend, I thought I understood my life. 38 years, married to Margaret. We'd met when I was 24, working as an apprentice mechanic at a garage in Scarborough. She was 19, working at the Tim Hortons next door, always bringing me coffee with extra cream the way I liked it. We got married 6 months later. Everyone said we were rushing. Maybe we were. But I loved her. God help me. I loved her with everything I had. We never had children. It wasn't for lack of trying. We went through the tests, the treatments, the hope that turned to disappointment month after month. Eventually, we stopped trying. Maggie said it was fine, that we had each other, that we'd travel and enjoy our freedom. But I always saw something in her eyes when she looked at other people's kids. A sadness she never quite admitted to. I worked hard my entire life. Started as a mechanic, eventually opened my own small repair shop in East York. Nothing fancy, just honest work. Cars, trucks, the occasional motorcycle. I'd come home with oil under my fingernails and grease on my work clothes, but I always made sure Maggie had what she needed. We had a modest house in Scarborough, 2 bedrooms, needed work, but it was ours. We took modest holidays. We lived a modest life. But somewhere along the way, modest became not enough for Maggie. It started maybe 5 years ago. Little comments here and there. "Tom, the Johnsons just bought a cottage up in Muskoka. Wouldn't that be lovely?" Tom, Sharon's husband bought her a new Lexus for her birthday. It must be nice to be appreciated. Tom, when are we going to actually do something with our lives? I tried. I really did. I took on extra work. I stayed late at the shop. I saved every dollar I could. But it was never enough. And then, about 2 years ago, I noticed she'd started dressing differently. Nicer clothes, more makeup. She'd gotten her hair done at expensive salons instead of the usual place. She was always on her phone, smiling at messages she never shared with me, typing away at things she never explained. I'm not a fool. I knew something was wrong. But I was too afraid to confront it, because confronting it meant losing her. And losing her meant admitting that 38 years of my life had been for nothing. That weekend in October, Maggie told me she wanted to go to Niagara Falls for the weekend. "For our anniversary," she said. Our anniversary wasn't for another month, but I didn't argue. I thought maybe this was a chance to fix things, to reconnect. I closed the shop early on Friday. We drove the hour and a half down the QEW and checked into a hotel near the falls. It should have been romantic. The falls lit up at night, the sound of the water, the cool autumn air. But Maggie was distracted the entire time. She kept checking her phone. She barely spoke to me during dinner. When we got back to the room, she said she was tired and went straight to bed, turning away from me. Saturday morning, she suggested we go to the casino. Casino Niagara. She'd never been particularly interested in gambling before, but she insisted, said it would be fun. So we went. I played the slots for a bit, lost $20, and decided I was done. Maggie said she wanted to try the blackjack tables. I said I'd wait for her at the bar. 2 hours passed. I texted her. No response. I walked around looking for her. The casino was massive, crowded, full of cigarette smoke, and the electronic sounds of slot machines. I finally found her at a table, but she wasn't alone. There was a man sitting next to her, tall, well-dressed, gray hair slicked back, expensive watch. They were laughing together. His hand was on her knee. I walked up to them. "Maggie, can we talk?" She looked at me like I was interrupting something important. "Tom, not now. I'm in the middle of a game." "Who's this?" I asked, looking at the man. He smiled at me. The kind of smile that said he knew exactly what was going on and didn't care. "Richard Weber. Friends call me Dick, and you must be the husband." The way he said, "the husband," like I was some inconvenient detail. "Maggie, what's going on?" She sighed, annoyed. "Tom, can you just go wait in the lobby or something? I'll be done in a bit. I'd like to talk to you now." "Well, I don't want to talk to you now." Her voice was sharp, cutting. The dealer and the other players at the table were staring. "You're embarrassing me." "I'm embarrassing you." "Yes, Tom, you are. You're always embarrassing me. With your grease-stained shirts and your cheap shoes and your complete inability to provide anything beyond the bare minimum." The words hit me like a physical blow. Richard, or Dick, or whatever his name was, just kept smiling. "Let's go outside," I said quietly. "Fine." She threw her cards down, grabbed her purse, and stormed toward the exit. I followed her through the casino, through the lobby, out into the parking lot. It was starting to rain. Cold, October rain that felt like needles on my skin. "What is this, Maggie? What's going on?" She turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger. Anger I could have dealt with. This was contempt. Pure, cold contempt. "What's going on, Tom, is that I'm done." "Done with what?" "Done with you. Done with this pathetic excuse for a life you've given me. Done pretending that I'm happy living in that tiny house, driving that embarrassing car, being married to a man who smells like motor oil and has nothing to show for 40 years of work. 38 years, Maggie. We've been married 38 years. 38 years I'll never get back." She opened her purse and pulled out my wallet. I didn't even realize she'd taken it. You know what? I was going to wait until we got home to do this, but I can't stand another minute. "Maggie, what are you doing?" She opened my wallet, took out the cash, about $60, and put it in her purse. Then she pulled out my credit card, my debit card, and my driver's license. She held them for a moment, like she was considering something, then put them in her purse too. "Maggie, give those back." "No, I don't think I will." She pulled out her phone. "In fact, I think you can find your own way home, Tom. Richard has offered to drive me back to Toronto. We're going to stop by the house. I'm going to pack my things, and by the time you manage to drag yourself back, I'll be gone." "You're leaving me? For him?" "I'm leaving you for anyone who isn't you, Tom. Richard just happens to be available. He owns 3 car dealerships. He has a house in Oakville. He knows how to treat a woman properly." "Maggie, please." "Don't." She held up her hand. "Don't beg. It's pathetic. You're pathetic. You've always been pathetic. I wasted the best years of my life on you, and I'm not wasting another second." She pulled the car keys out of her purse. Our car keys. The 15-year-old Honda Civic that was in both our names but that she was now claiming as hers alone. "How am I supposed to get home?" "I don't care, Tom. Walk. Hitchhike. Call someone." "Oh, wait. You can't call anyone, can you? Because I have your phone too." She pulled my phone out of her coat pocket. I hadn't even noticed it was missing. "Goodbye, Tom. My lawyer will be in contact." She turned and walked toward our car. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening. She got in, started the engine, and drove away. I watched the red taillights disappear into the rain. I was alone, in a casino parking lot in Niagara Falls. No wallet, no phone, no identification, no money, no way home. It was raining harder now. I was wearing just a light jacket. I was 62 years old, and my wife of 38 years had just thrown me away like I was garbage. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, maybe longer. I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me, like everything I'd built my life on had just been revealed as a lie. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen this coming? "Excuse me, young man." I turned. There was an elderly man standing a few feet away, leaning on a polished wooden cane. He was tall, thin, wearing an expensive wool coat and a scarf. He had white hair, neatly combed, and a black eye patch over his left eye. The other eye, sharp and blue, was looking at me with something like concern. "I'm sorry," I said, wiping rain from my face. "Were you talking to me?" "I was. I'm afraid I overheard your conversation, or rather, I couldn't help but overhear it. That woman had quite the carrying voice. I'm sorry you had to hear that." "Don't apologize. I'm sorry you had to experience it." He paused. "I'm William Ashford. Most people call me Bill." "Tom Morrison." "Well, Tom, I have a proposition for you, and I know it's going to sound strange, but please hear me out." I just stared at him. I was cold, wet, and completely broken. "Okay. My driver is going to be here in a few minutes. When he arrives, I want you to pretend to be my son. Just go along with it. Don't ask questions. Just trust me." "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand right now, but that woman, your wife, she hasn't left yet. I saw her pull around to the front entrance of the casino. She's waiting for someone. Probably this Richard fellow she mentioned. And when my car pulls up, when you get in with me, she's going to see it. And she's going to realize she made a terrible mistake." "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Bill smiled, a sad smile. "Because 20 years ago, I was standing in a hospital parking lot, and my son told me he never wanted to see me again. He said I'd been a terrible father, that I'd chosen work over family, that he was done with me. 3 months later, he died in a car accident. I never got to apologize. I never got to tell him I loved him. I've spent the last 20 years wishing I could go back and do things differently. He looked at me with that one good eye, and I saw decades of regret. I can't get my son back, Tom, but I can help you. I can help you show that woman what she's lost. And maybe, just maybe, I can finally do something right." Before I could respond, I heard the sound of an engine. A black Mercedes S-Class pulled into the parking lot, sleek and gleaming even in the rain. The driver, a man in a dark suit, got out and opened an umbrella. "Mr. Ashford, sir. Sorry for the delay. Traffic on the QEW was terrible." "Not a problem, James. I'd like you to meet my son, Thomas." James looked at me, surprised, but his expression quickly shifted to professional neutrality. "A pleasure to meet you, sir." "The pleasure's mine," I managed to say. Bill took my arm. "Help me to the car, son. These old bones don't work as well as they used to." I helped him walk to the Mercedes. James held the umbrella over us. The interior of the car was cream, leather, spotless, with a faint smell of expensive cologne. James held the door open, and Bill slid in. I followed. As James closed the door and walked around to the driver's seat, I looked out the window. And there she was, Maggie, standing under the casino awning with Richard, both of them staring at us. At the Mercedes. At me, sitting next to an obviously wealthy man, being treated with respect. Maggie's face went pale. Her mouth opened slightly. Richard said something to her, but she didn't seem to hear him. She was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Shock, confusion, and something else. Regret. Bill noticed where I was looking. Waved to her son. I lifted my hand and gave a small wave. Maggie just stood there, frozen. James started the engine, and we pulled away smoothly, leaving Maggie and Richard standing in the rain. "Where to, Mr. Ashford?" James asked. "Home, James. I think Thomas and I have a lot to discuss." I sat there in stunned silence as we drove away from the casino, away from Niagara Falls, heading north toward Toronto. The rain was heavier now, drumming on the roof of the car. Bill sat beside me, quiet, giving me time to process. "I don't understand," I finally said. "Why did you do that?" "I told you. I saw myself in you. A man who gave everything and got nothing in return. A man who deserves better than he's been given. But you don't know anything about me." "I know enough. I know that woman treated you like garbage in front of strangers. I know she took everything from you and left you stranded. I know you're a good man, Tom, because a bad man would have responded with violence. You responded with dignity. That tells me everything I need to know. We drove in silence for a while. The city lights of Toronto started appearing in the distance. Where are we going? I asked. My home. It's up in Muskoka. About 2 hours from here. I think you could use a warm meal, dry clothes, and a place to think. I can't impose on you like that. You're not imposing. I invited you. Besides, that house is far too large for one old man. It could use some life in it. But I don't even know you. Bill turned to look at me with that one sharp blue eye. Then let's get to know each other. I'll tell you my story, and you tell me yours. And by the time we get to Muskoka, we'll see if we can help each other. So I told him. I told him everything. About meeting Maggie at 19. About 38 years of marriage. About never being able to have children. About working myself to the bone to provide for her. About the shop, the modest life, the slow realization that she was pulling away. About the signs I'd ignored. About standing in that parking lot feeling like my entire life had been a waste. Bill listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Tom, I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound crazy, but I want you to seriously consider it. Okay. I want you to be my son. Not pretend. Actually, legally, become my son. I stared at him. What? I'm 75 years old. I built an empire in real estate development. I have properties across Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But I have no one to leave it to. My wife died 12 years ago. My son, as I mentioned, died 20 years ago. I have no other children, no siblings, no real family to speak of. But you can't just adopt a 62-year-old man. Actually, I can. Adult adoption is perfectly legal in Ontario. All it requires is consent from both parties and a judge's approval. I have excellent lawyers. They can make it happen. Why would you want to do this? Because I'm tired of being alone, Tom. Because I see in you something I never saw in the business partners and sycophants who surround me. Honesty, integrity, humility. You're a man who worked his whole life and never complained. A man who loved his wife even when she didn't deserve it. That's the kind of man I want to call my son. This is insane. Perhaps. But consider this. You have nothing to go back to. Your wife is leaving you. You'll have to fight for half of a house that's probably worth what, 300,000? 400,000? You'll go back to your shop, work until you're too old to turn a wrench, and retire on a pension that barely covers your bills. He paused, letting that sink in. Or, you can say yes to me. You can become my son. You can learn about my businesses. You can live in comfort. And when I die, which won't be long now at my age, you'll inherit everything. You'll be a wealthy man, Tom. You'll never have to worry about money again. And more importantly, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that woman will spend the rest of her life regretting what she did to you. I sat there, my mind reeling. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. I need time to think about this. Of course, take all the time you need. For now, let's just get you somewhere warm and dry. We'll talk more tomorrow. We arrived at Bill's house just after 11 p.m. I say house, but that's not the right word. Estate, mansion. It was massive. A sprawling property on the shore of Lake Muskoka, surrounded by tall pines. The main building was stone and timber, with huge windows that glowed with warm light. There were other buildings scattered around the property. A boathouse, a guest house, what looked like a workshop. James pulled up to the main entrance. A woman in her 50s came out to greet us. She had gray hair pulled back in a bun and wore a simple but elegant dress. Mr. Ashford, welcome home. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow. Change of plans, Helen. This is Thomas Morrison. He'll be staying with us for a while. Can you please prepare the blue guest room and have cook make something warm? We've had a long drive. Helen looked at me with curiosity but asked no questions. Of course, sir. right away. The interior of the house was stunning. Hardwood floors, stone fireplaces, cathedral ceilings with exposed beams, art on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum, comfortable leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. "Come," Bill said. "Let's sit by the fire." We sat in the main living room. Helen brought tea and sandwiches. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until I started eating. Bill watched me with that calm, assessing gaze. "Tell me, Tom, what do you want out of life?" "I don't know anymore. I thought I wanted a happy marriage, a simple life, to be appreciated for who I am." "And do you think you'll get that if you go back to your old life?" "No." "Then why not try something different?" "Because this feels like a dream, and I'm afraid I'm going to wake up." Bill smiled. "It's not a dream, Tom. It's an opportunity. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it." I stayed up most of that night, lying in the most comfortable bed I'd ever experienced, staring at the ceiling of a guest room that was larger than my living room at home. I thought about Maggie, about 38 years, about standing in that parking lot, about Bill's offer. The next morning, I found Bill in his study, a massive room lined with bookshelves and dominated by a huge oak desk. He was reading the Sunday paper, a cup of coffee at his elbow. "Good morning, Tom. Sleep well?" "Not really." "That's understandable. Have you thought about my offer?" I sat down across from him. "I have, and I have questions." "Ask them." "What do you get out of this? Really?" "Peace. The knowledge that my life's work will go to someone who deserves it, someone who will honor it and not squander it, and companionship. I'm tired of being alone, Tom. I'm tired of having no one to talk to, no one to share meals with, no one who cares whether I live or die beyond what they might inherit." "What about your business associates? Your friends?" "Associates are interested in business, not in me. As for friends, most of them died years ago, and the ones who are left are just as lonely as I am." "You said your son died 20 years ago. What happened?" Bill's expression darkened. "We had a fight. About the business. About my priorities. He said I cared more about money than about family. He was right, of course. I'd spent his entire childhood working, building the company. I missed his hockey games, his graduations, his wedding. I was always too busy, always chasing the next deal. And one day, he'd had enough." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "He told me he never wanted to see me again, that I wasn't his father anymore, just a stranger who happened to share his DNA. And I was too proud to apologize, too proud to admit he was right." 3 months later, he was driving home from work, and a drunk driver crossed the center line, killed him instantly. He was 35 years old. "I'm so sorry." "So am I. Every single day, I'd give every dollar I have to go back and do it differently. To put him first, to be the father he deserved, but I can't. All I can do is try to do better now." We sat in silence for a moment. "If I say yes," I said carefully, "what happens?" "First, we call my lawyers and start the adoption process. It will take a few months to finalize. In the meantime, you'll live here. I'll teach you about the business. You'll meet my key people. You'll learn how everything works. We'll also need to deal with your soon-to-be ex-wife. I'll hire you the best family lawyers in Toronto. They'll make sure she doesn't get a cent more than she's legally entitled to. She'll fight it. Let her fight. You have me now. And I promise you, Tom, no one fights me and wins." I took a deep breath, thought about going back to my empty house, my failing shop, my lonely life. Thought about Maggie with Richard, laughing at how easily she'd discarded me. "Yes. Yes. What?" "Yes, Dad. I accept." Bill's face transformed. He smiled wider than I'd seen yet, his one good eye glistening with tears. "Thank you, son. You've just made an old man very happy." The next 2 weeks were a blur. Bill's lawyers, a team of sharp, efficient professionals from one of Toronto's top firms, started the adoption paperwork immediately. They also started divorce proceedings against Maggie on my behalf, citing abandonment and emotional cruelty. Maggie called my old mobile number dozens of times, but Bill had gotten me a new phone with a new number. The only people who had it were Bill, Helen, James, and the lawyers. Bill introduced me to his inner circle, his chief financial officer, his property managers, his investment advisors. Some were surprised, others openly skeptical that I was really his son. But Bill was firm with all of them. "This is Thomas. He's my son, and he will be taking over the company when I retire. Treat him accordingly." I spent my days learning. Bill had files on every property, every investment, every business decision he'd made for the past 40 years. He explained everything patiently, answering my questions, teaching me not just what he did, but why he did it. "Business isn't just about money, Tom," he said one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports in his study. "It's about people. Understanding what they need, what they fear, what motivates them. You've worked with your hands your whole life. You understand the value of honest work. That makes you better qualified to run this company than most MBAs." Evenings, we'd have dinner together. Helen was an excellent cook. We'd talk about everything: my life, his life, books, politics, the lake, the weather, simple things. The kind of conversations I'd never really had with Maggie. "You know what I've realized?" I said one night. "What's that?" "I was lonely in my marriage, more lonely than I've been in my entire life. And now, for the first time in decades, I don't feel alone." Bill reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Neither do I, son. Neither do I." But of course, it couldn't stay peaceful forever. 3 weeks after I'd moved in with Bill, the doorbell rang while we were having breakfast. Helen answered it and came back looking troubled. "Mr. Ashford, there's a woman here claiming to be Thomas's wife. She's demanding to see him." Bill and I exchanged glances. "Show her into the sitting room, Helen. We'll be there shortly." We finished our coffee, taking our time. Let her wait. Let her see what it feels like. When we entered the sitting room, Maggie was standing by the window, looking out at the lake. She was dressed carefully, a nice dress, heels, makeup done perfectly. She turned when we entered, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. "Tom, thank God. I've been so worried about you." "Have you, Maggie?" "Of course. When you didn't come home that night, I thought something terrible had happened. And then when my lawyer told me you'd filed for divorce, I was shocked. What's going on?" Bill stepped forward. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm William Ashford. I believe you saw me briefly in Niagara Falls." Maggie's eyes widened slightly. "Mr. Ashford? Yes. I thought I recognized you. You're the property developer. I've read about you." "Have you? How flattering. Then you know I don't tolerate games. So let's skip the performance. You didn't come here because you were worried about your husband. You came because you realized you made a mistake. You saw him get into my car, and you've spent the last 3 weeks wondering if maybe, just maybe, you threw away something valuable." Maggie's face flushed. "That's not true." "Isn't it? Tom told me everything, Mrs. Morrison, about how you treated him, about your affair with Mr. Weber, about how you abandoned him in a parking lot with no money, no phone, and no way to get home. We had a fight, couples fight. It doesn't mean anything." It meant something to Tom. It meant he finally saw you for who you really are. Maggie's eyes flicked to me, desperate now. "Tom, please, we can fix this. We've been married for 38 years. You can't just throw that away." "You threw it away, Maggie. The night you left me standing in the rain. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. But I love you, Tom. I always have." "No, you don't. You never did. You loved what I could give you. And when that wasn't enough, you went looking for someone who could give you more. That's not fair." "Fair?" I felt anger rising in me for the first time. "You want to talk about fair? I worked every single day for 38 years to give you a decent life. I never cheated. I never lied. I never made you feel small. And you repaid me by humiliating me in public, stealing my belongings, and abandoning me. And now you have the nerve to come here and tell me you love me? Tom, please." "No, I'm done, Maggie. Sign the divorce papers. Take what the law says you're entitled to, and move on with your life. I'm moving on with mine. With him? She looked at Bill with contempt. You're going to be this old man's charity case? His little project? Bill smiled coldly. I'm not his charity case, Mrs. Morrison. I'm his father. I'm adopting Thomas. Legally. He's going to be my son and my heir. Everything I have will be his when I'm gone. Maggie went pale. You're joking. I assure you, I'm not. Tom, you can't be serious. You're 62 years old. He can't just adopt you. Actually, he can. The paperwork is already in progress. I could see her mind working, calculating. How much is he worth? That's none of your business anymore. It is if you're trying to hide assets in a divorce. My lawyer will. Your lawyer will do nothing. Bill interrupted. Because everything Thomas inherits from me will come after your divorce is finalized. You have no legal claim to any of it. My lawyers have made absolutely certain of that. Maggie stared at us, her face a mask of rage and disbelief. This is insane. You're both insane. Perhaps. But at least we're honest about who we are. Can you say the same? She turned on her heel and stormed toward the door, then stopped and looked back. You're going to regret this, Tom. Both of you. The only regret I have, I said quietly, is that I didn't see who you really were 38 years ago. She left, slamming the door behind her. Bill put his hand on my shoulder. That was harder than you expected, wasn't it? Yes. But necessary. She needed to understand that you're not her victim anymore. Over the next few months, Maggie did exactly what Bill predicted. She fought. She hired aggressive lawyers. She claimed I'd been hiding assets. She alleged I'd abandoned her, not the other way around. She tried to get the adoption blocked, claiming Bill was mentally unfit and I was manipulating him. Bill's lawyers were better. They had witnesses from the casino who'd seen and heard everything. They had documentation of Maggie's affair with Richard. They had testimony from Richard's ex-wife about how he'd done exactly the same thing to her. They had Bill's medical records showing he was perfectly sound mentally. And they had something else. Something I didn't know Bill had arranged. In the courthouse hallway, just before our final hearing, Bill's lead lawyer, a formidable woman named Patricia Chen, pulled me aside. Tom, there's something you need to know. Your brother has filed a motion to intervene in the adoption. My brother? Daniel? Yes. He's claiming that Bill is being unduly influenced, that you're a con artist, and that as your closest living relative, he has a right to contest the adoption. I felt sick. Daniel and I hadn't spoken in 5 years. He'd always resented me. When our parents died, they'd left me the family home and him the cottage up north. The home was worth more, and Dan had never forgiven me for it, even though it was our parents' decision, not mine. He's lying, I said. He doesn't care about Bill. He just wants the money. I know, and we're going to prove it. In the courtroom, the judge listened to all sides. Maggie's lawyer argued I was a manipulator. Daniel's lawyer argued Bill was being taken advantage of. Patricia calmly presented evidence of my character. Letters from former employees at my shop, testimony from neighbors, documentation of every dollar I'd ever earned and every honest way I'd earned it. And then she called Bill to the stand. Mr. Ashford, can you tell the court why you've chosen to adopt Thomas Morrison? Bill sat straight, his voice clear and strong despite his age. Because for 20 years, I've lived with the regret of losing my son. Not to death, though that came eventually, but to my own pride and foolishness. I chose work over family. I chose money over love. And I paid the price. He paused. When I met Thomas in that parking lot, I saw a man who'd made all the opposite choices, who'd put family first, even when that family didn't deserve it, who'd worked honestly his entire life and never complained, who'd been loyal and kind and humble, and I saw a chance to do something I've never been able to do before, to be a real father to someone who actually values it. But he's 62 years old. Isn't this unusual? Unusual? Perhaps. But who says family has to follow conventional rules? Thomas may be 62, but he needed a father, and I needed a son. We found each other when we both needed it most. If that's not what family is supposed to be, I don't know what is. The judge looked at me. Mr. Morrison, is this your wish as well? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. Bill has shown me more love and respect in 3 months than I received in 38 years of marriage. He's taught me, guided me, and made me feel valued for the first time in my life. I'd be honored to be his son. The judge took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Morrison, Daniel Morrison, I've reviewed all the evidence. I find no indication of undue influence, manipulation, or mental incapacity. I find 2 adults who have freely chosen to form a family in an unconventional but entirely legal manner. He looked at Maggie and Daniel. As for you 2, your objections are noted but rejected. Mrs. Morrison, you'll receive your equitable share of the marital assets, as determined by law, but you have no claim to any future inheritance Mr. Thomas Morrison may receive. Mr. Daniel Morrison, you have no legal standing to contest this adoption. Your motion is denied. He signed the papers with a flourish. Adoption granted. Mr. Thomas Morrison, you are now legally the son and heir of Mr. William Ashford. Congratulations to you both. I turned to Bill. He was crying. I was crying. We embraced there in the courtroom while Maggie and Daniel watched with identical expressions of fury and disbelief. That night, we celebrated at the house. Helen had made a proper feast. James opened a bottle of champagne that cost more than my old car. Bill raised his glass. To my son, may you always remember that family isn't about blood, it's about loyalty, about choosing each other every single day. To my father, I replied. Thank you for seeing value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. We clinked glasses, and I felt, for the first time in longer than I could remember, completely at peace. Bill lived for another 3 years after that. 3 beautiful years. He taught me everything he knew about business. We traveled together. We spent mornings on the lake in his boat. We spent evenings by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. He met my few real friends and welcomed them. I met his old business partners and earned their respect. He died peacefully in his sleep one October morning, exactly 3 years to the day after we'd met in that parking lot. I was with him. I held his hand. His last words to me were, "Thank you, son, for giving an old man's life meaning again." I inherited everything, the company, the properties, the investments, a fortune worth over $400 million. But more importantly, I inherited his wisdom, his values, and his belief that I was worth something. I kept my promise to him. I ran the company honestly. I treated employees fairly. I made decisions he would have been proud of. And I set up a foundation in his name to help other people who'd been abandoned, betrayed, or forgotten. As for Maggie, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Richard broke up 6 months after the adoption was finalized. Apparently, his car dealerships weren't doing as well as he'd claimed, and when she realized he wasn't the meal ticket she'd thought, she left him too. Last I heard, she was living in a small apartment in Mississauga, working retail. Daniel tried to sue me for a portion of Bill's estate, claiming I'd manipulated an old man. The lawsuit was dismissed within a month. I never heard from him again. I'm 70 now. I sold the company 2 years ago for a sum that would have been unimaginable to the man standing in that parking lot. I kept the house in Muskoka. I sit by the same fire Bill and I sat by. I look at the same lake, and I think about how one moment of kindness from a stranger changed everything. Last month, I was at Casino Niagara for a charity event. Just a coincidence. I wasn't seeking it out. But I found myself walking through that same parking lot where it all began. It was October again, raining again, and I saw a man, maybe 50, standing alone, looking lost. A woman was driving away, and I could see from his face exactly what had just happened to him. I walked over to him. "Excuse me, are you all right?" He looked at me, tears mixing with rain. My wife just left me here. She took everything. I don't even know how to get home. I pulled out my phone. Let me call you a car. Where do you live? Kitchener, but I can't afford. It's taken care of. And listen to me very carefully. Whatever you're feeling right now, it's not the end. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the beginning of something better. Trust me on that. He stared at me. How do you know? I smiled. Because 8 years ago, I was standing exactly where you are. And a stranger helped me. And it changed my life. So now I'm helping you. Because that's what we do. We help each other. I arranged for a car to take him home. I gave him my card and told him to call me if he needed anything. Legal help, job references, just someone to talk to. I told him the same thing Bill told me. That he deserved better. That his value wasn't determined by someone who couldn't see it. I don't know if he'll call, but I hope he does, because I learned something from Bill. Something that Maggie and Daniel never understood. Money is just a tool. What matters is what you do with it, who you help with it, how you use it to make the world a little bit better than you found it. Bill saved me that day in the parking lot. Not just financially, but spiritually. He gave me back my dignity, my self-worth, my belief that I mattered. And now I spend every day trying to do the same for others, because that's what real family does. Real family lifts you up when you're down, sees value in you when others don't, chooses you, not out of obligation, but out of love. I lost a wife who never truly loved me. I lost a brother who only saw me as competition, but I gained a father who changed my life. And I learned that sometimes the worst betrayal is actually the greatest blessing in disguise. My name is Thomas Ashford. I'm 70 years old, and this is the true story of how a stranger became my father and how losing everything helped me find what really mattered.